Thank you very much. Thank you.
Party spokesperson there, Pule Mabe, just bringing to a close that briefing by Tabang Makwetla. Interesting, because a large portion of what he was talking about pivoted on the economy. And I think it was quite stark, him talking about the reality of difficulty for the ANC to win in the metros. If you go to places like Katlehong and Soweto, poverty is in your face, and it's affecting the support for the ANC in the metro. Again, it's not a breaking news revelation.
No, absolutely. I mean, we have seen in 2016 when the ANC lost most of the metros, you know, look at in Gauteng, I mean, literally they lost all the metros. But the biggest problem is that the ANC is not able to really deal with the economic issue. And why I say that, post-1994, the current economy, the way it's structured, it's not working. And the president alluded to that also earlier on today as in his opening or his political report, you know, saying that delegates should also look into if the current structure of the economy is working or not working. I don't think that is something that they should even be asking themselves, you know, because we know that majority of the people in South Africa live under very difficult conditions, and that's why right now there's also a discussion about the basic income grant within the ANC. It's because of such, you know, and I think the ANC with COVID really missed an opportunity to restructure the economy.
Well, let's talk about, and this is something we had discussed before we actually went into this broadcast, this question around the makeup of the branches themselves. And you noticed him being quite clever and strategic with his words there, talking about, who is in the current branch meetings or who makes up those branches, wanting and yearning for, a more complex makeup, for want of a better description, of those branches by more professionals entering those branches. But it also ties into the question that we were raising before we came on air about this distance between people in either the NEC who actually have their foot and their footprint in branches, almost in a sense trying to dissociate from those branches in this us and them dichotomy.
I think what we must go back, you know, there was at some point under President Zuma, he used to talk about the clever blacks, and the clever blacks was the professionals. You know, that they seem to be clever, to have so many ideas, and that really pushed away, you know, most of professionals outside of the ANC. And when you speak to some of the professionals who have tried actually to go and be branch members of the ANC, they feel lost in those meetings because what is being discussed there is not of value to them, you know. So the ANC really needs to look at something also. I want to take you back, which the ANC is not talking about today. The same conference where President Ramaphosa was elected as the deputy president in 2012 resolved on a decade of a cadre. This decade of a cadre is coming to an end in December. And this talk about the issue of also the branches. What kind of cadres has the ANC produced in this decade? There's nothing that we can see that is really tangible when we look at the status of the organization. And I agree with you, most National Executive Committee members, even the president, when he was speaking today about branches, he speaks as if he's not a member of a branch. The question is that are the branches that they belong to, are those branches active with programs? Because you can't have just a BGM, a branch of BGMs where people are just going to be nominated and elected. After that, they will meet again when there's another conference.
And this is a problem because when you set a long-term strategic vision that isn't accomplished, or as you've described it now, not close to becoming accomplished, it renders that hollow. So it means whatever objectives they set for the next decade are likely to suffer the same fate. I want to talk a little bit about what he said right at the very beginning, this doubling of the middle class, and in particular, the majority in that middle class band comprising black people. And he mentioned the stats of around, a doubling in terms of going from 7 to 14%. And I looked at you and said, is that an accomplishment to be proud of?
I think for starters, I mean, when you read of some of the reports that came out during COVID, the numbers have actually declined of the middle class because a lot of people lost their jobs. And the reason being, I always say there's no middle class in South Africa. It's an indebted middle class. They live a month away from poverty. And reason being, if you look at the transport system in this country, if you look at the health system in this country, if you look at the education system in this country, the middle class is putting money in terms of paying for school fees, paying medical aid, and right now with petrol, some are even forced to buy cars. A car is a luxury. We should have actually the best transport system where we don't need cars. We use trains or buses, to move around anywhere you want to go.
Rebone, thank you very much for looking at that and a lot more issues. He talked about when he referred to the professionals that the ANC made. I wonder how, a lot of people will relate to that. But he covered a lot of ground, and hopefully we have time to get back to it. But appreciate your commentary up to now. Thank you so much.